Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
After my parents divorced and both moved away for work, I was left to fend for myself. With college tuition eating up most of my savings, this hostel was the only affordable option. It's not all bad though. My bunkmate and I get along pretty well. We're both engineering students, so we often stay up late studying together or grab a quick bite between classes. We've got a good vibe going, which makes the cramped living conditions more bearable. A few weeks ago, I treated myself to a new pair of earphones. They weren't top of the line or anything, but they were a step up from the cheap ones I've been using. I even put a small mark on them so I could easily identify them as mine. Just a tiny scratch near the jack. It's a habit I picked up after living in shared spaces for so long. One day, I couldn't find my earphones anywhere. I tore apart my side of the room, checked all my bags, even looked under the bed. Nothing. I figured someone must have stolen them. It's not uncommon for small items to go missing in a place like this. I was pretty bummed about it, but what could I do? About a week later, I noticed my bunkmate had a pair of earphones that looked exactly like mine. At first, I thought maybe it was just a coincidence, but then I saw that tiny scratch near the jack, and my stomach dropped. I tried to play it cool and casually asked him about them. I mentioned that the earphones looked just like the ones I had lost and asked if he had seen mine around. He replied that he had borrowed them from a guy at the end of the hallway. The tall one with glasses. I knew exactly who he was talking about, but something didn't feel right. I decided to do a little investigating before jumping to conclusions. The next day I tracked down the guy my bunkmate had mentioned. Let's call him A for now. I asked A if he had lent my bunkmate a pair of earphones recently. A looked confused and told me he had never even owned a pair of earphones, then asked why I was asking. That was all the confirmation I needed. My bunkmate had stolen my earphones and then lied about it. I was angry, but I knew I had to be smart about this. We still had to live together, after all. I pulled A aside and explained the situation. He was pretty cool about it and agreed to help me out. We came up with a plan to catch my bunkmate red-handed. A few days later, a group of us were hanging out in the common area. My bunkmate had the earphones with him as usual, and that's when A made his move. He called out to my bunkmate saying he'd been looking all over for him and asked for his earphones back, claiming he needed them for class the next day. He went pale and started stammering. He asked A what earphones he was talking about, clearly caught off guard. I reminded him about the ones he had supposedly lent him last week. My bunkmate looked at me, then back at A. He was cornered and he knew it. He stammered out a response, pretending to suddenly remember, and reluctantly handed over the earphones to A, who then passed them to me. I thanked A, mentioning that I had been looking for these earphones everywhere. The room went silent. Everyone was staring at my bunkmate, who looked like he wanted to disappear into the floor. I told my bunkmate that next time, if he needed to borrow something, he should just ask, and I would have said yes. Then I walked away, leaving him to deal with the judgmental looks from our friends. From that day on, he never touched my stuff again. In fact, he could barely look me in the eye for weeks. I got my earphones back without having to directly confront him. Sometimes a little creativity goes a long way in dealing with entitled people who think they can take whatever they want. Okay, this one started because my mom wanted to treat me for my upcoming birthday. I was turning 15 and she thought it'd be nice to get me some new clothes and maybe a few accessories. We'd been shopping for a couple of hours and I was getting pretty tired. Mom suggested we take a break and grab some food at the food court. She went to find us a table while I headed to the restroom. On my way back, I stopped to look at a display of colorful phone cases in front of an electronics store. That's when it happened. A woman approached me, clearly annoyed. She complained that she had been waiting for 10 minutes and demanded to know why I wasn't helping her. I turned around, confused. There was this woman glaring at me like I'd just insulted her entire family. I tried to explain that I didn't work there, but she wouldn't believe me. She accused me of lying and insisted that I was clearly an employee. She then demanded that I show her where the latest smartphones were. I was wearing a plain t-shirt and jeans, nothing like the uniforms the store employees had on. But this lady wasn't listening. I tried again to explain that I really didn't work there, and that I was just a customer like her. The woman became even angrier. She threatened to have me fired for speaking to her in that way. Before I could react, she grabbed my arm. Her nails dug into my skin and I winced in pain. I cried out in pain and told her to let go of me. She refused, saying she wouldn't release me until I did my job and served her. She called me a lazy brat. I tried to pull away, but her grip was surprisingly strong. Then, out of nowhere, she slapped me across the face. The sound echoed through the mall, and my cheek stung like crazy. She yelled at me, saying that would teach me to disrespect my superiors. I was in shock. Did this really just happen? Tears welled up in my eyes, partly from the pain and partly from the sheer absurdity of the situation. Just as I was about to yell for help, I heard a familiar voice. It was my mom, and she sounded furious. She demanded to know what the woman thought she was doing to her daughter. The woman turned to face my mom, still gripping my arm. She seemed surprised to learn I was someone's daughter. She accused me of lying and pretending not to be an employee to avoid helping her. My mom ordered the woman to let go of me immediately. The woman defiantly refused, challenging my mom to make her. I'd never seen my mom move so fast. In a blink, she was right in front of the woman. Mom grabbed the woman's wrist and twisted it, forcing her to release me. Then, before anyone could react, Mom's fist connected with the woman's jaw. The woman's eyes rolled back and she crumpled to the floor like a sack of potatoes. My mom declared that was for hurting her baby girl. By this point, a crowd had gathered. Security guards came running and one of them helped the woman to her feet. She was dazed but conscious. A security guard asked what was going on. The woman immediately accused my mom of assaulting her and demanded they arrest her. I quickly explained that the woman had attacked me first, thinking I was an employee and getting mad when I said I wasn't. Several people in the crowd spoke up, confirming my story. The security guards looked at the red mark on my face and the nail marks on my arm. The security guard told the woman she would have to come with them. He explained they would review the security footage and call the police. The woman protested, asking if they knew who she was. As it turned out, nobody knew who she was, and nobody cared. The security guards led her away while she continued to rant and rave about how important she was. Mom hugged me tight, checking my face and arm. She apologized for what happened and asked if I was okay. I assured her I was fine and thanked her for coming to my rescue. Mom promised she would always protect me, saying no one messes with her girl. We gave our statements to the police when they arrived. Turns out, the woman had a history of similar incidents at other stores. This time, though, she was facing assault charges. I was shaken by what happened, but also proud of how my mom handled it. She's always been my protector, but seeing her in action like that, it was pretty awesome. When I got to college, I knew I wanted to major in computer science. It wasn't always easy, but I loved the challenge. My senior year was particularly tough. I had a full course load, including this really demanding class on advanced algorithms. The professor was known for being a hard ass, always pushing us to our limits. For our final project, we had to write an academic paper on a topic of our choice. I chose to explore a new approach to optimizing search algorithms in large datasets. It was grueling work. I spent countless nights in the library, fueled by energy drinks and determination. Finally, after weeks of research and writing, I finished my paper. I was really proud of it. The professor even mentioned it was one of the best he'd seen that semester. After turning it in, I uploaded all my work to GitHub, partly as a backup and partly to show off a bit to my tech-savvy friends. Fast forward almost 4 years. I'm working at a tech startup, still passionate about algorithms and data structures. One day I'm browsing through some recent publications in the Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers, just to stay up to date with the field. And that's when I see it, my paper. Word for word, exactly as I wrote it, but under someone else's name. At first I thought maybe it was a mistake, but as I dug deeper I realized the truth was much worse. The author listed was the son of my old professor, currently a junior at some fancy Ivy League school. This kid had a bunch of other academic citations too. It made my blood boil. I immediately reached out to the Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers. Their response was pretty underwhelming. Their representative told me they had forwarded my complaint to their ethics department and that they would be in touch if they needed any additional information. Great. So now I'm just supposed to sit and wait while this fraud gets credit for my work? No way. I decided to do some more digging. It didn't take long to find the kid's university email. I sent him a message pointing out that I had noticed he published a paper in the Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers journal that was identical to one I wrote 4 years ago for his father's class. I asked him to explain. His response came quickly. He claimed he didn't know what I was talking about and insisted that the paper was his original work. I replied, challenging his claim by mentioning that I had uploaded the exact same paper to GitHub 4 years ago, before his publication date. The fraudulent author then tried to backpedal, suggesting it might be a misunderstanding and proposing we talk about it. I told him there was nothing to talk about. I said he had stolen my work, that I had proof, and that I would be contacting his university's ethics board. That's when things got really interesting. About an hour later, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. It was the kid's father, my old professor. The professor tried to smooth things over, saying his son had made a mistake due to pressure to publish. He suggested we discuss the matter like adults. I responded that there was nothing to discuss, as his son had committed academic fraud by plagiarizing my work. The professor then attempted to bribe me, proposing we co-author a paper together and offering to open doors for me in the academic world. Shocked by his audacity, I told him I couldn't believe he was trying to bribe me, and ended the call. I hung up, fuming, but I wasn't about to let this go. I reached out to my alma mater, explaining the situation. They were furious. Turns out the professor had a history of ethical complaints that had been swept under the rug. Within a week, things started happening. The Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers retracted the paper and issued a public apology. The fraudulent author's university launched an investigation, which led to his expulsion. My old professor was forced to resign. Well, I got an unexpected email from a leading tech company. They'd heard about the situation and were impressed by my original work. They offered me a job in their research department. It wasn't easy, and there were moments when I felt like giving up, but standing up for myself and my work was worth it. Now, when I look at that paper on GitHub, I don't feel anger anymore. I feel pride, because that paper, it's mine, and now everyone knows it. I'm a single mom working hard to raise my little girl right. Her dad left when she was just a baby, so it's been just the two of us for years now. I've always tried to teach her to be kind, stand up for what's right, and treat others with respect. Looks like those lessons are really sinking in. My sister and I have always been close, or so I thought. We grew up together, shared secrets, and supported each other through thick and thin. When her daughter was born just a few months after mine, I was thrilled. Our girls would be cousins and classmates, growing up together just like we did. But lately I've noticed my sister becoming more judgmental and negative. Maybe it's the stress of her job or her recent divorce, but she's been saying some pretty nasty things about people. I've tried to brush it off, thinking she just needed time to adjust to her new life. That all changed on a sunny Saturday afternoon when we decided to take the girls out for ice cream. It was supposed to be a fun family outing, a chance for us to catch up and for the cousins to play together. Little did I know it would turn into a moment that would test my parenting skills and my relationship with my sister. As we sat at the colorful plastic table, watching the girls devour their ice cream cones, my sister started talking about the kids in their class. She couldn't believe some of the unusual names some of the children had. I tried to change the subject, but she wouldn't let it go. She then specifically mentioned the twins my daughter was friends with, criticizing their names harshly and predicting they'd have a hard time in life because of them. I felt my stomach clench. Those twins were my daughter's best friends, and they were sweet kids with loving parents. Before I could say anything, my little girl spoke up. She told my sister that she was talking about her friends and that it wasn't nice. My sister's eyes widened in surprise as my daughter continued, saying that if my sister said such things at school, she'd have to go to the thinking chair. My daughter then suggested that my sister should apologize for being mean. My little girl standing up to an adult, defending her friends with such conviction. I felt a surge of pride mixed with a touch of anxiety about how my sister would react. My sister turned to me, clearly expecting me to scold my daughter for speaking to her that way. But in that moment, I knew exactly what I had to do. I agreed with my daughter, telling my sister that her comments were unkind and judgmental. I explained that the children's names were their parents' choice and it wasn't our place to mock them. My sister got angry and couldn't believe I was letting my 5-year-old correct an adult. I stood my ground, saying that while my daughter might be young, she knew right from wrong. I expressed pride in her for standing up for her friends and her beliefs. My niece sat quietly, looking confused and a bit scared by the tension. I felt bad for her, caught in the middle of this adult disagreement. My sister accused me of letting my daughter get away with being disrespectful. I countered, explaining that I was teaching my daughter to respect everyone, regardless of age or name. I suggested that we could all learn something from her that day. My sister abruptly stood up, grabbing her purse and my niece's hand. She announced they were leaving since I chose to embarrass her like this in public. I turned to my daughter, who looked worried, and reassured her that she had done the right thing and expressed how proud I was of her for standing up for her friends. My daughter asked if her aunt and I were fighting because of her. I assured her that sometimes adults disagree, but it wasn't her fault. I praised her bravery and kindness. We finished our ice cream in silence, but I could see the wheels turning in my daughter's head. On the way home, she asked if her aunt was going to be okay. I told her that her aunt would be fine and just needed some time to think about things. My daughter innocently compared it to the thinking chair at school, which made me laugh. I agreed, saying it was just like the thinking chair. My relationship with my sister would need some serious work, but I knew I had done the right thing by supporting my daughter. Watching my little girl knock it out of the park with her empathy and bravery, that was a home run I'd cherish forever. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.